Let's start with a moment that I think everyone dreads. That feeling of universal panic when legal paperwork just shows up out of the blue.
Right.
It could be, a scary looking envelope, a court notice, or an actual process server standing on your front step.
Hmm.
For any business owner, that moment is absolutely critical. So today we're doing a deep dive into two non-negotiable parts of legal compliance service of process and the role of the registered agent.
And we're getting specific.
Very specific. We're focusing on the New Orleans metro area, so Canner, Metairie, New Orleans itself, to really see how local court rules can turn what seems like simple bureaucracy into a serious business risk if you don't handle it correctly.
That's a great way to frame it, because we're using some really detailed documentation from a Louisiana process serving firm to get at this, to understand that critical intersection of, local law and business defense.
Right.
Our mission today is to get past the paperwork and really understand the why. Why does having local expertise and state certification become a shield for businesses? Especially against something like a default judgment that comes from just missing a deadline.
And the sources we have are pretty interesting. We've got these detailed instructions on how attorneys and businesses can start a lawsuit using a secure digital upload. And then we're putting that right next to this intense analysis of why the registered agent role is something you just cannot afford to outsource carelessly.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with the active side first. Service of process. This is, the legal act of formally telling a defendant, hey, you're being sued.
Right, the notification.
For attorneys and businesses who are initiating that service, the analysis we looked at points to these secure digital portals. They're designed to just simplify that initial handoff. It really sounds like the industry is moving toward high efficiency.
Oh, absolutely. The documents we reviewed, they stress precision and security above all else. For a client, let's say an attorney who needs to serve a defendant in Jefferson Parish, the process has to be fast and flawless.
So what does that look like?
They break it down into 3 quick steps. First, you select and upload the actual legal documents. And being able to handle multiple documents securely in one shot is a huge time saver.
Okay, right. Just get the file into the server's hands.
Second, you put in the essential data. So the name of the person or company being served, the exact address where it needs to happen, and then any special instructions.
Like what kind of instructions?
Well, maybe they need to serve a specific officer of a company or a particular managing member. That kind of accuracy is paramount because if the service is flawed, it can be challenged in court and the whole case can get thrown out.
So once that information is submitted, the clock is ticking. But the service hasn't actually happened yet, right? What's the final logistical step for the client?
You get an immediate confirmation that your upload worked, and then, critically, you get a prepaid invoice. The key takeaway here is logistical commitment.
Okay.
The process server only commits their resources, their staff and their field agents, after that invoice is paid. This structure makes sure that resources are allocated efficiently.
That makes sense.
And for those like midnight filings or those panicked Friday afternoon requests, they emphasize 20/47 availability for questions, which in the legal world is often the difference between success and failure.
That focus on logistics for the person starting the lawsuit is really clear. But let's flip the script.
Okay.
That service of process has to go somewhere. And that brings us to the foundational defense for any corporation or LLC, the registered agent service, which is legally required when you form a business in the New Orleans area, just like everywhere else.
Precisely. You should think of the registered agent, or the RA, as the official legal doorkeeper for your business. It is the single point of contact designated to receive all of those high-stakes legal communications.
So not just lawsuits.
Not just lawsuits. We're talking service of process, subpoenas, wage garnishments, and even official mail from the Louisiana Secretary of State.
And what are the actual rules in Louisiana for who can be the storekeeper? Can I just, rent a mailbox?
Oh, far from it. The legal mandates are strict, and for a very good reason. First, the RA must have a physical street address in the state.
No P.O. boxes.
A P.O. box is a non-starter. It has to be a physical place. Second, and this is crucial, they have to be physically available to accept service during all standard business hours, so usually 9 to 5.
Okay.
And what's fascinating here is that the state takes this so seriously that the Louisiana Secretary of State officially certifies professional RAs. This certification, which the firm we analyze has, confirms they maintain a functioning staffed office just to meet these requirements. It elevates them from a mail forwarding service to a state-vetted compliance partner.
And that's where the local detail becomes so important. The materials point out that this specific certified office is at 1 Galleria Boulevard in Metairie, which is, right in the middle of the greater New Orleans area.
Exactly.
Why is having a physical presence in Metairie, a suburb, so much more important than using some generic agent up in Baton Rouge, or even worse, one in Delaware?
That right there, that's the hinge point of this entire deep dive. It's not about convenience, it's about risk mitigation. Which brings us to the dangers of picking the wrong agent.
Okay.
When business is formed, the owner usually sees two options for their RA. They can do it themselves, the DIY route, or they can hire a cheap, national, faceless company. The documentation we reviewed gives some pretty stark warnings against both of those for local Louisiana businesses.
Let's start with the DIY approach. Let's say I run an LLC out of my house. Why shouldn't I just list myself as the registered agent and save a few bucks?
The primary threat is an immediate and irreparable loss of privacy. The moment you list your home address on the Louisiana Secretary of State's online portal, it's called GBIZ, that address becomes a permanent public record.
For anyone to see.
For anyone. So if someone wants to sue you, your address is right there. And process servers are legally obligated to use it. The analysis we saw put it pretty vividly. A process server could show up at your house right as you're sitting down to dinner.
Wow.
You basically sacrifice your personal privacy to save maybe $100 a year.
That definitely paints a picture of why you'd want to separate your business and personal life. So let's tackle the other option. The cheap national agent you see advertised all over the place.
Right.
They look professional. They say they handle compliance in all 50 states. Why aren't they good enough for a local business in Kenner?
Here's where it gets really interesting. The risk shifts from just loss of privacy to catastrophic operational failure. We're talking about the default judgment. See, these national services, they operate on scale. They often treat all incoming mail exactly the same, which leads to some pretty significant mail forwarding delays. They might get an official summons for you, scan it a week later, and then mail it to you. You could lose 2 weeks before you even see the document.
And in the courts around New Orleans, 2 weeks can be the difference between filing a defense and, well, losing your business by default.
Exactly. We're talking about the 24th JDC, that's the 24th Judicial District Court for all of Jefferson Parish, and the Orleans CDC, the Orleans Parish Civil District Court. These local courts have very tight deadlines set by Louisiana law. If you get served, you have a hard deadline to file an answer. If that summons is stuck in transit with a national agent, you miss that deadline.
Can you elaborate on that? What actually happens to the business if they miss that court deadline in one of those specific courts?
The court, believing you've just ignored them, will often issue a default judgment against your business. This means the plaintiff wins the case, and you owe whatever they demanded.
Without ever getting your day in court.
Without ever having your day in court, and often without even knowing you were sued until the judgment is being enforced. For a small business, a default judgment is often fatal. The lesson is that the cost of that delay from a generic national agent is exponentially higher than the fee for a local urgent service.
That jurisdictional nuance is really the core takeaway here. A business needs an agent who understands the specific urgency of a summons stamped by the 24th JDC, not someone who just sees it as regular mail that can wait 5 days.
Absolutely. The local agent, they're already familiar with the court clerks, the filing rules, and the whole pace of litigation in Jefferson and Orleans parishes. They know a court date might be set in days, not weeks. Which brings us to what the source called the Metairie process server's advantage. It shifts the RA role from being a liability to being a proactive legal partner.
So what does that proactive partnership actually look like in practice? How is it different from the slow, generic national service?
The difference really comes down to 3 operational guarantees. First, and we've already touched on it, is ironclad privacy protection. Your business is shielded by the professional address. Second is speed and expertise. Since they're state-certified process servers, they don't just receive legal mail, they instantly recognize the severity of a summons or a subpoena. There's no confusion about what they're holding.
So how does that expertise translate into action when a legal document actually arrives at their Metairie office?
This is where they really redefine the service. It's not mail forwarding. The moment the legal papers are served on them, they are scanned and emailed to the client immediately.
Okay, that's fast.
But they go further. They include a read receipt request, and critically, they follow that up with an immediate phone call to the client.
A phone call, too.
Yes. This triple-check system, physical receipt, immediate email, urgent personal call, is designed to shrink that notification window from days or weeks down to just minutes. They make sure the business owner knows that clock is ticking right away.
That proactive approach scan, email, and call, that really seems like the necessary insurance against that default judgment we were talking about. It buys the business owner critical time to find an attorney.
It does. And finally, they offer full legal support services. Because they are constantly in and out of the 24th JDC and the Orleans CDC, if a client gets served, the firm can immediately help with rush court filings, document retrieval, or other runner services right at those local courthouses.
So they're not just a mailbox.
They're not a mailbox. They're already integrated into the court system where you'll be defending yourself.
That connection really solidifies the value. We even saw a compelling anecdote from a client, a guy named Kenny G., a small business owner in Kenner, LA. He switched from a national company to this local team.
Right, I remember that one.
He described the change as night and day. He specifically appreciated how responsive the local team was. It just shows that personal, local attention is possible, even in something like legal compliance.
It's a powerful illustration. And for any listener who might be realizing their current agent is exposing them to this risk, the sources make it clear that switching is actually really simple. You don't need a lawyer for it.
How does it work?
You just file the change of registered agent form directly with the Louisiana Secretary of State through that JBIZ portal, and the local Metairie team takes over. They provide immediate documented protection.
So what does this all mean?
It means that the ease of starting a business online, maybe in 10 minutes with an LLC filing, it's a bit of a deceptive veil. That ease instantly creates significant, hidden legal exposure. We've analyzed how local compliance, specifically having a state-certified registered agent in the New Orleans metro area, is the crucial barrier against the catastrophic fallout from a simple missed piece of mail. The specific courts, the 24th JDC and Orleans CDC, they demand an urgency that these generic, slow national services just can't provide.
That is extremely important context. We do have to close, though, with the vital disclaimers that were in the sources we analyzed. This deep dive is for educational purposes only. It is not legal advice. The firm we discussed, they provide professional process serving and registered agent services. They are not lawyers. If you are served with any legal documents, you must stop what you are doing and consult a qualified attorney immediately to understand your rights and your options.
And I think if you're an entrepreneur, the cost of protection is often invisible until the moment you actually get sued. The money you spend on a professional registered agent is really negligible compared to the potentially massive financial hit of a default judgment in one of these fast-moving civil courts.
So here's the final thought. Given the extreme risk of a catastrophic default judgment just because of a delayed piece of mail, how often do small business owners fundamentally underestimate the cost of not paying for robust local compliance? The real question isn't whether you need an agent, but whether the agent you choose is actually designed to protect you from the specific high-stakes pace of your local courts. That's really the foundation of business survival.